Now, let's be honest. Gluttony is not exactly a vice that we feel particularly bad about. In fact, we celebrate gluttony in all kinds of ways in our society. Think about the excesses of Mardi Gras or Fat Tuesday, or an old Carl's Jr. slogan that said, "If it doesn't get all over the place, it doesn't belong in your face." In our world today, gluttony is seen as a way of enjoying life in its fullest.
So why did the ancient church fathers and mothers think gluttony could lead to spiritual death? Well, because gluttony is not really about feasting. It's not really about how rich your dessert is. It's not about your waistline. It's about desiring the pleasure of eating and drinking so much that it crowds out other things that should matter more to you. It's about valuing your pleasure in food above things like your body's health, above the well-being of your neighbors, and even above your relationship with God.
Genesis 25 tells a story about how destructive gluttony can be. Isaac and Rebekah had two sons, Esau and Jacob. In verse 28, the Bible says that Isaac, who had a taste for wild game, loved Esau because Esau was a skillful hunter. So Isaac's desire for pleasure in food caused him to prefer one of his own sons over the other. That is a setup and rivalry. That set up a rivalry between them.
Yeah. Now, not only did Esau pick up on his dad's disordered desire for food, but that rivalry created a rift that would one day end in tragedy. One day, Esau came back home after some time in the open country and was famished. His brother Jacob saw that he was famished and he was cooking a tasty stew. And Esau actually gave up his birthright to Jacob because of his ravenous desire for food. Gluttony, as this story shows, isn't just about eating way too much. It can be about how and why you eat what you eat. If you want a handy reminder to remember the various ways that gluttony can show up in your life, you can use the acronym FRESH.
The F, it stands for eating too fastidiously. You're eating too fastidiously when you say to your friend who just offered you coffee, "Oh, no thanks, I only drink pour-over coffee." Or when you desire for a more specific diet that's causing you to spend way too much time at the grocery store. Fussy and fastidious eaters don't mind being a burden on others or on their own bank account if it means eating or drinking just the right way. They make the type of food they eat more important than hospitality or relationships or stewardship of financial resources.
The R stands for eating too ravenously. You're eating too ravenously when you add 4 slices of pizza to your plate at that party, even though you're not sure you can eat all of it because you're afraid the box might be empty when you get back. If you tend to inhale your food or shovel it in faster than you can swallow it down, you might just be a ravenous eater. Ravenous eaters love feeling full more than they love others having enough.
The E stands for eating too excessively. This is exactly what it sounds like, eating too much. This might look like 4 scoops of ice cream at the ice cream shop, or ordering dessert even after you feel full. The excessive eaters value the pleasure of eating more than the well-being of his or her body, his or her body's usefulness in God's service.
Now, the S stands for eating too sumptuously. That's a crazy word, but it's all about loving the feeling of being full. You ever heard the term comfort food? When you slam a double-double at In-N-Out, not because you're hungry, but because you love the feeling of being full more than you love the health of your own body. That's being too sumptuous. It's that extra plate of full chow mein just to top yourself off when the broccoli would have been a wiser choice and would have given you enough.
Finally, the H stands for eating too hastily. This might look like constant snacking when you're making dinner because you just can't wait for the meal, and then not feeling able to eat with your family. Maybe it looks like taking a bite before you've even finished what you're chewing. The hasty eater elevates their short-term pleasure of eating now over the relational pleasure of sharing a meal with others and their willingness to trust God to sustain them whatever they go through short periods of hunger.
Now, all these types of gluttony prioritize the pleasure of eating. Either what we eat or how we eat it over other more important things. It's not that eating is bad, of course not. And it's not even wrong to desire the pleasure of eating. It's about how much and why we desire it.
If gluttony is a vice, then the opposite virtue is something we'll call tempered desire. The opposite of gluttony is not some asceticism. It's not some kind of lack. If gluttony is an inordinate desire for the pleasure of eating, then its opposite is a healthy desire for that pleasure that's rightly ordered.
Exactly. So tempered desire values the pleasure that food and drink gives us as a good gift from God, but it prioritizes God, prioritizes the well-being of others and the health of our bodies above that pleasure. Someone with a tempered desire is able to eat enough to sustain themselves without going overboard. They're able to drink without getting hammered. They're able to be discerning about food choices without being picky or inhospitable, and able to, when necessary, deny themselves for the sake of greater goods.
In the next video, Betsy is going to share with us a practice that will help us cultivate tempered desire and avoid gluttony.
Surprise, surprise, that practice is called fasting.